Like, get out there and stop saying man up and shit like that. Like, no, because the men that took that took that seriously, man up, right? Like, work through your fucking problems in your head. Like, close your eyes every day for 10 minutes. Don't be distracted by your phone. Don't be distracted by your laptop. Forget about those different kind of getaways, because that's what they are. They're a getaway from you manning up and closing your eyes and being in silence and working through the thoughts that are in your head. The message should be, man the fuck up.
Regardless of it's on the football field, on the basketball court, or in business. You know, nobody's just going to roll over and say, hey, you can be the top dog here. Like, you have to go out and work for it and take it.
Welcome to the Diesel University podcast. I'm your host, Maximus Matuccio, and today we have two very special guests for you.
Joe Healy.
Derek Driscoll.
These two guys are very involved in the sports and fitness industry in the city of Lowell specifically. We always start off with the same question. Talk to me about your athletic journey, just from the time you first started playing sports to where you are today. We'll start with Joe.
I've played sports for really my entire life, as long as I can remember. Probably starting off with soccer, like everybody else. Was probably pretty terrible at that. And then went to baseball and was horrible at that. And then I think my first love was basketball. Always was inclined to fight, but didn't really compete in any fighting sports until after my high school athletics career. And I'd say my main sport throughout my life was probably football. That was what I was best at. I was supposed to play college football. For certain reasons, I didn't. I was committed to playing college football, but just went down a different path. And then when that ended, I started to box. And now, I train with Derek over at Evolution and try to compete when I can. I've only competed once, but looking forward to doing more.
Yeah. There you go, Derek.
Yeah, very similar to Joe. Typical American boy playing baseball, football, basketball growing up. Mostly football and basketball. Was a lot better at football, but loved basketball the most, similar to Joe again. But ended up, playing throughout high school. In high school, stopped playing football to focus on basketball. Probably the worst decision I ever made in my life, but followed my passion. Was pretty good. Not great, but ended up playing in college. Injuries were a big deal for me in high school and college. And then eventually, after playing some college basketball, ended up training to fight mixed martial arts. Ended up finding Jiu Jitsu and kind of falling in love with that, and that kind of took over my life after that.
Okay. So I kind of want this conversation, like, I didn't write questions. I usually write questions.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of we're just going to go with it from here. I mean, that's the question. It's just like open the door to everything. So obviously you started NESP. How long ago was that? About 10 years ago?
This is June's our 10-year anniversary. Yep.
Okay. So what went into that process of starting a gym? Because I know that's not an easy thing to do.
So my family moved out to California when I was a junior in high school. I stayed behind and I stayed in Lowell for the first half of my junior year. And then the second half of my junior year, I went out to California. And you quickly notice that in other parts of the country, it's a whole lot easier to get recruited, right, to big time schools than it is in the Northeast. So at our football practices, I was at Carlsbad High School, and I practiced with the team from January through the summer. And immediately when I got there, they had already watched my film. They had colleges laid out that they think that I should go to. And they were all colleges that were a whole lot higher level than the people in Lowell thought I could go to. So it was all Division I schools. And everybody on my football team out there, Stanford was at every practice. Oregon was at every practice. And these kids were going to go there. And I was looking around and I said, these kids aren't any better than the kids at Lowell High. The kids at Lowell High are better than these kids. But what was the main difference? And the main difference was not only do all these kids go to an after school program gym that is very high end strength and conditioning, but the high school itself had a strength and conditioning coach, not some guy who lifted in his basement, who is a coach coaching football and throws bench 5x5 on the wall in the weight room and thinks he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
The difference to me was the strength and conditioning. So I said to myself one day, I think I kind of said this to myself junior year of high school. One day I want to bring this level of strength and conditioning back to the Northeast, because I think that the talent here isn't any worse than the talent everywhere else. I just think that it's underserved because we focus on different things here in the Northeast than they do in the rest of the country. And I think that mainly that is because we drill down on education a little bit too much, because in this part of the country, that is what drives really everybody going to school, right? We've got all these different top universities in Boston and stuff like that. So you go, you'll have a teacher in middle school here that'll tell you, you're never going to make it to the NBA or the NFL. Focus on school, which is such a stupid message, where they should be saying you can do whatever you want. Let's give you all the tools to do whatever you want. And one of those tools for athletics is strength and conditioning. So I just wanted to kind of bring that back here. So when I stopped playing football, when that was all said and done, I was at a school, Bentley, and they were going to pay for me to go there if I played football. It was a business school. I wasn't going to play football anymore. So then the bill was going to come in for like $50K a year, which is not worth it, if you ask me. And I had some kind of secondhand advice from a professor that was retiring from another school, told somebody who I knew at the time, if I could give you one piece of business advice, it's take the money that you're spending on this class and start a business, because no business professor can teach you business. The only thing that can teach you business is starting a business. So I didn't really get into it so much for, I'm super passionate about gyms. I was more passionate about kind of learning what to do with my life. And the obvious answer for me was, again, because of the history, well, I want to open a business right now. I've got very little money. What's a cheap business to open? A gym. So I bought $4,000 worth of equipment and opened it in my garage. Got kicked out of my garage about 2 weeks later, and then drove to Cawley Stadium every day with kettlebells and dumbbells and bands, and was doing a lot of stupid shit with the kids I trained at the time, but just kind of progressed from there, and that's the history of how we started it.
There you go. There you go. Very humble beginnings.
Yeah.
I've thought a lot about wanting to start my own gym eventually, somewhere down the line.
Competition.
Yeah,
You just
I
out
know.
yourself, man.
I know, or maybe once I grow a little bit of a merger or something.
Yeah.
We could listen. There's a lot of
We'll
time
talk.
for things to develop. We'll talk. We don't talk business on the podcast.
Yeah.
We don't talk numbers. But yeah, I definitely agree that there's a lack of like emphasis on the strength and conditioning aspect of sports in this area.
Yeah.
Like I live in Tewksbury, so Tewksbury has started to develop more of a program. But when I was training at Tewksbury, I think partially due to COVID, I wasn't as structured as I could be, and I wasn't following their plan. So at a certain point, I realized, okay, my dreams of playing college football are slowly starting to slip away after my junior year. And I said, okay, where are the best athletes in this area training? So I looked at Ty, I looked at Ray, I looked at Aaron Morris, all those guys who were going to compete at the highest level. And I said, okay, I need to be where they are, because I've watched these guys develop and I've looked up to them. So I decided, all right, I'm going to reach out to NESP and see what I can make happen. And I started training there. And then things have developed into.
And I think Tewksbury is kind of the classic example of one of these high schools around here. First off, right, they do pretty well because they do pay attention to strength and conditioning. But at the same time, you've got these football coaches who don't study strength and conditioning, who study football. They might have a little bit of muscle on them because they lifted weights, and they think, well, shit, I can do the strength and conditioning with my own team. And then when their players come to us, they get pissed off, which happened with you, right? It's like, I always say to people, I personally deal with a lot of different nagging injuries that I think have been caused by doing stupid shit in the weight room from 8th grade or 7th grade all the way throughout high school because I'm doing it unsupervised, right? And one of the most important aspects of life is how your body functions, right? I mean, if you've got different, again, nagging injuries, it really wears on you all day and again throughout your life, and that shit can be caused by lifting like an idiot. So when you go to do your taxes, if you've got a business, you hire an accountant, right? Like if you're going to fix your car, you go to a mechanic. Are either one of those things as important as your overall health, right?
No.
Or the health of a kid who's going through high school? So why do you trust your fitness and your strength and conditioning with somebody that thinks they know what they're doing, but they don't actually make it their career and their focus, right? It's like, yeah, shit, I could take the taxes from one of my businesses and put it in TurboTax. But is that as effective as hiring George Liakakis,
No.
the Greek accountant? You don't even know who that is, but you
No,
already know.
he sounds pretty
Shout out to
legit. He
George.
sounds like he would know what he's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like
Shameless
people.
plug.
Yeah, that was good. That was good. Yeah, but it's just like not. The body is not as prioritized as it should be, and neither is the mind. It's all like external things in life that are.
Well, I
have
feel like
top
you saw
priority.
that during COVID too. They told you to do everything but get your body, right, and get your body fortified to prevent getting sick. They want you to take, every vaccine and this and that, every precaution, but go outside, get sun, work out, get strong, get fit. So it's not only is it, I think a regional thing or, just for athletics, but just in general in America, I think it's really, it's almost like looked down upon if like you're focusing on that. Like you're looked at as like vain or
Exactly.
musclehead or, whatever the case may be. But that's one of the most important things that you could possibly take care of. I mean, it is the most important thing that you can take care of. If your body starts to break down, usually your mind starts to follow.
Exactly.
You're trying to see with the president right now. So
The only two things that you actually own in life are your mind and your body
yeah,
and your time.
people can't take that away from you.
And you don't even own your time.
Not really.
I mean, you do and you don't, but the more you prioritize, first off, mind more than anything, right? And because if you don't own your mind, then you're not going to be able to really do the things that help you to, promote good health with your body. Exactly. But they coincide, right? Like just listening on the way over here, and like Derek said, it doesn't really. Somehow they now tie exercise with being right wing.
Right wing, yeah.
Like how?
If you work out,
because body positivity is inclusive, and if you're not inclusive of being fat and obese, then you're a right wing bigot,
lunatic, yeah.
Which is it's insane to try to put a label on being healthy.
Self-betterment.
Yeah, I mean, you can talk all day about how to go about that, but like the overall goal of being healthy and in shape and getting everything up and running, that should be the number one priority for everybody. But again, it's looked at almost like being a bad thing at this point. Like you're not inclusive of people who don't do that, and it's like, no, well, if you could get an A+ or a D-,
Get the A+.
would you rather get the A+ or the D-? Well, that's not inclusive of the people who barely passed. It's like, I'm not saying that, there's not anything wrong with that, but you want to be aiming for the A+, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
and there is something wrong with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's, really
Yeah.
there is, but I mean, it's, when I say inclusive, I'm not going around like yelling in fat people's faces,
No.
Yeah.
But we should be trying to get those people healthy instead of saying it's okay to be like this, because it's not okay.
Yeah.
It's not.
It leads to a lot of issues, and like you talk about how the number one priority in life should be to have your body and mind right, and like everything else follows. Because like just if you like, even just from when I first started like taking my training very seriously, I started to see myself in a completely different way and like understand my own capabilities in a very
That's the real body
different way.
positivity, is when you start feeling good about yourself.
Exactly.
You know,
'Cause
body positivity isn't saying it's okay to eat Cheetos and, you know, be a fat fuck.
Yeah.
yeah,
You know,
And-
body
and-
positivity is getting in shape and feeling good about yourself.
And it's like learning
Exactly.
how to fight, right?
Yeah.
It's people think to yourself, oh well, when I learn, and you kind of you always have this with kids, right? Like we'll have certain kids down at the gym like, I need to learn how to fight because I want to go out and like street fight. And what they don't realize is that when you do learn how to fight, you don't do that.
Right.
Right? Because your confidence is at a level that you don't feel like you need to do that.
Yeah.
Right? And if you keep people fat and unhealthy, then their confidence stays down.
Right.
And like there's nothing that you should push on anybody, right? Like let people live the way that they want to live as long as they're happy, right? You should just try to promote happiness with everybody that you're around.
Right.
Because if everybody else is happy, then chances are the world is a better place. But the thing is that if you're fat and you're out of shape and you're unhealthy, you're not happy.
Right.
you're not. You could tell yourself that you're happy, and you could
So-
give this outward portrayal of some
And then
happy.
what do those people usually do? They try to tear other people down to make themselves feel better.
Exactly, like the people who are working on themselves, they marginalize
Yeah.
them and put
You
them
know, so I
Yeah.
group their
I think
labels
there's a-
on them. And
big correlation to that. You know, of people being, you know, unhappy, whether it's, you know, because they're out of shape or not. But the unhappy people are the only people who are going to be tearing other people down. You don't see healthy, successful people talking shit about other people a lot of the times, you know?
no,
So, you know, there's something to that.
when you're trying to tear somebody down, there's obviously some underlying issues with
Right.
yourself. Like that's how I always see it. It's just, I mean, I took a psychology class in my freshman year. Now I think I'm some sort of psychologist, but like, there's a bunch of different. It's what's the word I'm looking for? There's a word, but it's projection. You just project your own insecurities onto
Right.
other people, and like things that you feel inadequate in, areas of your life that you feel inadequate in. You're gonna try to attack people who you are almost jealous of,
Oh, yeah.
and
Exactly.
like, yeah, it's,
And that's why the people that don't think to themselves they know how to fight typically get into more street
Yeah,
fights.
I mean, you're very rarely going to see a professional fighter getting into a bar fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or acting cocky out there, right?
I mean, there's a lot of reasons to that. Most of the time, those guys aren't going to be in those situations because they're not there. They're, you know, they need to keep their body right and stuff. But, you know, you don't need to prove to anybody that you can defend yourself or that you're tough or anything like that when everybody already knows,
yeah,
right? So, I mean, obviously there's scenarios that happen, but
yeah,
for the most part, the people who you see fighting in the streets are people who don't know how to fight.
yeah. So a little bit about fighting. You started Evolution with your brother.
Yeah. So that was a much more roundabout way than how Joe started. So like we said earlier, you know, my brother and I always all in with basketball. He was a lot more talented than I was, but we both, you know, pretty good. Worked really hard, both of us, and ended up both playing in college. Again, I ended up having to come back home. I played at a school down in Tennessee Temple University, and ended up having to come home to have a second ankle surgery. My first one was in high school. That's actually where I met Joe. We both on the basketball team. Joe only for about a month, and then
about 3 days.
moved on to bigger and better things.
Yeah.
But, you know, from there, I came back home to have surgery, and my dad was just like, "Hey, you know, we can't play basketball, so let's do something to stay in shape. Let's try jiu-jitsu out." And we had always, growing up, been big fans, like kind of similar to Joe, big fans of fighting. Grew up like watching Pride and the UFC in our basement with our dad, mess around with him, you know.
Yeah.
But never like thought we'd actually do anything like that, you know. And you know, from the first class, we just hooked,
Yeah.
you know, and ended
What
up.
year was this?
That's 2011.
Okay.
September 2011. Yeah, so 12 years ago. Flies. But yeah, after 2-3 months, we're all competing, winning local tournaments, and end up moving down to Brazil with one of our coaches after his green card expired. Jeremy and I ended up moving down there and had a lot of fun and success competing, at local and national tournaments down there. And when we came back, our gym had moved actually into Tewksbury. So it was a little far for us to go. And there was a little bit of a falling out. We didn't know behind the scenes with our coach in Brazil and our coach up here who were business partners.
Yep.
So when we came back, we were kind of caught in the middle of that without knowing it.
Yep.
And we ended up just starting our own gym kind of on accident.
Yeah.
It ended up being a thing where we're like, oh, we'll just, we have this space that our coach in Brazil used to rent out, and the landlord said we could do it for free for like 6 months to get us started. We'll just get a bunch of guys together, mess around, and we'll go back and forth from here in Brazil.
Yeah.
And Joe was early part of that. He was there in the early days. It was, duct taped wrestling mats and glass all over the floor, mirrors shattered all over the place, just a bunch of savages in there. And it slowly started to grow into an actual business when people, started telling their friends, and then they bring their little brother, and now we have a kids program, and you were a part of that kids program early on.
For a little bit.
Yeah. So yeah, it was, like I said, it kind of just fell into our laps. If you told me at 18, fast forward 10 years, you're going to be owning a jiu-jitsu gym, I'd be like, you're either on drugs or you're crazy. I'm going to be a basketball player or a coach or something. And it's just weird how life can take you. One twisted ankle can take you from college basketball and college coaching dreams to owning a jiu-jitsu gym,
Yeah.
So.
That's the big thing about this podcast, is that everybody has such a unique athletic journey.
Yeah.
Like I talked to Brock. Brock has very unique athletic journey. He had a path that he was going down, and he had everything set up for him, and then things changed for him. Things changed for you. Things changed for you.
Yeah.
Things are beginning to change for me. I always dreamed about playing college football and didn't necessarily have all the knowledge that I needed to get to that level because it wasn't readily available to me. I mean, I just wasn't as physically, like mentally, I feel like I was developed enough to do that. But yeah, I'm just trying to create like a platform right now that's like, that gives kids that, what you were talking about earlier, that information to get to that next level. And that's just,
I think successful people are gonna find a way to be successful, whether it's in one field or another. It's that foundation that you build, and I think sports or athletics have a lot to do with that. For a lot of successful people, it kind of instills in you like, look, nobody's gonna be given anything. You have to work for what you want. Regardless of it's on the football field, on the basketball court, or in business. Nobody's just gonna roll over and say, hey, you can be the top dog here. Like, you have to go out and work for it and take it.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's so important for young people to be involved in some form of competition or athletics, because that's how the world works.
Exactly.
That's the world. It's all competition in life. And if the first time you get hit in the mouth with competition is, when you're going for that promotion in business and you've never dealt with any adversity in your life, you're going to crumble.
Yeah.
So I think
sports teaches you that at a very early age, like very early. Because I started playing sports very young. You guys did too.
Yeah.
It teaches you something that you don't learn in a classroom.
Yeah.
You can't learn in a classroom.
You do in a classroom, not from the curriculum, but from being in like a primal environment where it is naturally competitive. Because the classroom is naturally competitive in the way that there's gonna be like the big dog in there who's a dickhead to people, and like he's like the bully, and you're gonna have the kid that's the kid that's quiet and gets bullied, who if he doesn't speak up for himself, then he's never going to get any respect. But the second that he does speak up for himself, he gets respect. And like that is where I think that the classroom is beneficial in the competitive sense. But then, like you said, every kid has to do some type of activity where they're competing against other people, and they have the option and the opportunity to compete with what David Goggins would call your governor, right? Like your little bitch inside of your head. And that's what jiu-jitsu is such a great sport for that, right? Because you could have, Derek have you in full mount, him pressing his chest up against your face, and it's like, this sucks, but I know that I'm not going to fall asleep, right? Like you get to the point where it's like tapping from pressure.
Right.
right? And you get to that point where this sucks, but if I make that conscious decision right now to deal with it, right, and not tap, and you get to past that point that it's okay, like I'm gonna be all right, and you tell yourself that in your head, and then you get past it, and then you naturally get a dopamine spike, right, because you just worked through something that you wanted to quit, and that teaches you kind of everything in life, right?
Yeah.
And you see it too much, like like you hear a lot today that our society is soft, and I think that we did hit a tipping point of that. I think that it was soft, and I think that it was really promoted to be soft. I think that the whoever the overarching they is, right, like the people that are really in control, they want the majority of people soft. But I think that also because of the age of information that we're in right now, and people like a Joe Rogan, I think that we're going the other way. But you do see it, and like I have to work, unfortunately, a lot in the corporate world, right, which is the softest world in the world, if that makes any sense. And you'll see all these different trends in the corporate world. Like one of them was quiet quitting, right? And it was, and it's a message that's pushed out everywhere. Where if you're on LinkedIn, which is the social media in the business world, you see all these different people promoting quiet quitting. Oh, if you're not being compensated to the point at your job that you think that you should be compensated, work less. They tell you, right? Where in reality, the message should be, if you're not getting compensated the way that you should get compensated, work harder, right?
Exactly.
Like prove that you should be compensated more, right? And that's the message that sports naturally teaches you. And I always said that football especially, right, along with fighting sports, but any sport, football is one of those sports that it was like, I could tell you right now, the kids that I played high school football with, the kids that grinded their balls off, that were not that talented, but they were super fucking tough, right? And would work their ass off to make sure they saw the field. And the talented kid that was behind them, who didn't work as hard, wasn't playing, and they were. Now that they're in the workforce, they work their ass off and they're successful. Right. And then you got the talented kid who didn't work his ass off, who got skated by on talent. Now they're in the workforce and they're not successful, right? And then the kid that grinded in football right now, like I was telling you the other day, right? Some kids that we played, we really did a lot of high school athletics with, who weren't super talented, but they were on the wrestling team, get the shit kicked out of them for 4 years, showed up every fucking day to practice. Same thing in football. Now one of these kids is like dropping behind enemy lines in the military. He's a savage, right? And that kid's going to be successful his whole life. And athletics is kind of like a microcosm for what the rest of life is, right? And it teaches you that right away as a youth. How do you work harder to make sure that you are compensating for maybe your lack of talent? If you are super talented, are you letting that just be what kind of makes you go progress throughout everything that you do? Because if that's the only thing that you rely on, then you're fucked. It's not going to work out. But if you find that balance of, okay, relying on my talent and my work ethic, first of all, if you've got both of those, then
those are the superstars.
Yeah, those are the superstars. But even if, right, like even if you're not that talented, you can get there, right? Like there are kids at the Jiu Jitsu gym who you said you should have seen them their first day, right? They could barely chew gum, and now they kick the shit out of someone.
He's going to be fighting on a fight card at Encore in a couple days. Dana White's going to be in attendance. A huge opportunity for him. There's only, 2 amateur fights on the card, and he got the call for one of them. He was probably one of the least talented people to walk into our gym, but he's the hardest worker every single day. He's there every day, and he's going to work as hard as he can. And the most important thing is he's going to listen. Yeah. Right? Because you can show up every day, and you can be talented, but if you're not listening,
you're not going to learn.
You're not going to learn. And if you don't learn, you get stuck, right? Yeah. So he's like the ultimate example of like somebody who worked themselves into a good position, And I think, kind of to play off what Joe said, like sports, especially like a full contact and aggressive sport like football or any kind of combat sport, it's gonna teach you that life's not fair on the field and in life. somebody could be way bigger, faster, stronger than you. You have to compete against that guy. Like, you can't just be like, no, like, I'm going to sit this one out. I'm good.
Yeah.
Like, if, you have Jerome Bettis lined up against you across the line in high school, you can't just take the playoff.
No.
Like, you have to try to play and compete as hard as you can. And it's not fair. Some people are going to be way better than you, and they're going to kick the shit out of you. But you have to keep showing up, and you have to give it your all, and you have to try to improve so that you can compete with that person. And natural talent is going to eventually shake out, and not everybody who tries real hard is going to be LeBron James.
Yep.
But you have to work like you're going to be LeBron James. You have to try to be a LeBron James or a Michael Jordan or a Kobe Bryant or any of those guys that like people look at and they're like, wow, the work ethic.
Yeah.
Like, you have to work like that so that you can reach your maximum potential, whatever that is. If it's Division 3, if it's Division 2, if it's Division 1, if it's a pro guy. You have to work to that limit so that you don't go home, and you wake up, you're 40 years old, and you're like, fuck, I should have done that. I could have been something.
Yeah.
How many of those guys are there?
I'm one of those guys.
Yeah. I mean, you get to our age, like 30 years old or something like that, and you it starts to sink in like, fuck, I could have done something if I just worked a little bit harder. And that's what we tell all of our guys. Like, when you're training for a fight, especially, it's like the pinnacle of that, right? Like, there's no team. It's just you out there. So all your hard work, it's just you. Like, everybody, you're stripped naked pretty much literally and figuratively. Like, you're out there, no clothes on, fighting in front of a bunch of people, and they can all see how hard you worked, right? And they can all see if you quit. So we tell guys all the time, it's like, look, whether you win or lose, that's a 50-50 chance. One person's going to win, one person's going to lose, right? But you want to be able to go in there and come back out and say, hey, whether I won or I lost, there was nothing I could have done to change that outcome because I worked as hard as I could.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that everybody is fighting with is, like David Goggins says, the inner bitch, right? Like, when you could have worked harder. If you could have done a little bit more. And that's the thing that eats people up, right?
Yeah.
You can lose 20 fights in a row, but if you gave it your all, you can walk out and be fine, go party and whatever.
Yeah.
But if you lose and you could have done something to possibly have done better, that's going to kill you inside.
Yeah.
And that's what makes people depressed or angry or whatever. You go home and you drink too much and you hit your wife or whatever. It's those guys that do that, not somebody who knows that they worked, as hard as they could.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's just an understanding of your ability to control the outcome of the situations that you're put in.
Yeah.
Has an impact on the way you see the world in a very
well put. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true.
I did not realize my ability to control outcomes until I started at NESP.
Yeah.
Because my whole life I was like this kid who was very passionate about football, but I was never phenomenal at the sport. Like, I would work hard towards getting to that, but wasn't doing the right things. Like, I would go on long runs and think, oh, Rocky used to go on long runs. This is going to make me a better football player.
Yeah.
Well, you're a classic example of the lack of
knowledge
and the lack of kind of a structure that helps you get there. First of all, right, like, there's a lot of people that think to themselves, like, oh, this guy might be a prodigy and this guy... And at some point, a lot of success for anybody comes down to luck, right?
Yeah.
And circumstance and where you grew up or how you grew up or what time period you grew up, right? Like, a classic example is Bill Gates, right? Like, everybody thinks he's some genius who created some certain type of software. No, right? Like, yeah, he has a lot of success. He's born into money. Right, he was born into a town that had some massive supercomputer that he could use all the time, right? And then from there was some club, some mom's club that bought him a computer at a time where nobody else had computers, and he just so happened to go to the same high school as what's his face, the guy who owned
Wozniak?
No, Paul Allen. Was it Paul Allen?
The Seahawks guy?
Or some fucking guy, but either way, it's right. Like,
he went to high school with some guy.
Yeah, with the other guy, some guy who was also
Wait,
a software developer.
Paul Wozniak is
no the guy who owns the Clippers.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Whatever.
I can picture him in my head.
Yeah,
right now.
point being is that a lot of it does come down to luck, right? Whereas if you grew up in Alabama, right, you would have a whole different football experience than you did growing up in Tewksbury,
Right.
Yeah.
right? Because you had the attitude. I'll never forget the first DM that you sent to NESP. Do you remember what it said? Like I
remember it was
feel
like
like
a
I'm
big
We're
pretty.
gonna expose you right
I
now.
feel like I'm
to your
pretty.
audience.
I feel like I'm okay at football, but I'm nowhere near what my potential is, and I want to come down to your gym and work my ass off to get to that potential. And then the first workout you ever came to, right? First of all, you fucked up by saying that to me because and I was like, I'm gonna bury
I'm gonna kill this.
Yeah.
make him never want to come
And I
back.
think
Yeah.
I did. I think I did, right?
Yeah.
And you threw up or something.
I did. I think I threw up.
And
in
I
the
was like,
trash,
oh, and you never do that as a trainer, right? Like if you don't ever do that to somebody with their first time coming in, but you got me fired up. I was like, fuck, this kid wants to work.
Yeah.
I was like, so I'm gonna make him work.
Yeah.
And then I think you threw up, and then it was a little while before you came back. But
Yeah.
you had that drive, right? You had that I want to do it, right? And you're gonna do what it takes to do it. But again, you are kind of a victim of circumstance when it comes to football, right? Which a lot of people, again, in this area are, right? Like there were kids on our grade that played football at Lowell High. That was an amazingly talented team, right? Like you had like an Anthony Gentles, right? Like kids like that are freak shows athletically that, you know, I loved our coaching staff, like great guys, okay? But it looked like Tony Soprano and all of his boys coaching a fucking football team, right? Like our wide receivers coach weighed 300 pounds. He probably never ran a route in his life, right? He was down at the Kilkenny Friday and Saturday night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, whereas if you go out to Alabama, your wide receivers coach, like, probably played for the Crimson Tide, right? So it's a lot of it is luck. But again, because of where you're born, right? Like geography in a lot of ways is destiny.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's things that you can do to help mitigate all the different disadvantages that you were born with, which, you know, everybody is born with advantages and disadvantages. Right. But the message should always be, again, like no matter what your circumstance is, in the world that we live in today, you are so... you're able to change your circumstance, right?
Definitely.
Like you hear about privilege and you hear about all this shit. Well, it's all relative, right? Because the majority of people in the world have the access to the internet, right? And who is more privileged? Somebody right now that has the access to all of that information, or a middle class person from 1400, right? Like who has more of an opportunity to better themselves? A lower class person now who has the computing power of entire nations just 30 years ago in their pocket, right? Or somebody back then, because, you know, I actually was just having this conversation with somebody earlier today. There's really not much a need for college anymore, right? Yeah. All college is the certificate at the end of it, right? Because you can, everything you can learn in college, I can learn on that device in my pocket right now.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like we are incredibly advantaged to be living at the time that we live in now. Anybody that wants to complain about today's world, they're just complaining out of comfort, right? They're looking for issues because they're afraid to solve the issues that go on. They're not cleaning their own house, right? That's like a Jordan Peterson type thought. But, you know, I mean, it just, again, it goes back to the whole, if nowadays work your ass off, you change your circumstances. There's everybody. Some people are born with better luck than other people, right? Some people are born more athletically gifted, like Derek was saying. But, you know, it's a time now where, okay, if you're born some fucking dweeb and it's, you know, you're 10 years old and you start lifting and you start doing research on what's going to make you a better athlete, the supplements that can make you a better athlete. You've got technology now that can help you get better at things, that can help you learn faster. There's literally a headphone thing called the Halo that I used to use that legitimately changes the way that your brain waves work so you can go and learn things quicker, right? Like there's the knowledge of ultradian rhythms at certain points in the day for 90 straight minutes. You're going to be able to take in information better than other times in the day. They didn't know that shit back then, right? Like you're living in a time and an age right now that, again, I mean, not for everybody, right, in different countries, but here in America, I mean, come on, right? Like, work your balls off, and chances are you're gonna make it. There's gonna be a lot of, people that would argue with that and say like, oh no, like going back to like I might get, like I'm insensitive or whatever. But again, those people that would think that probably just aren't trying that hard.
Well, and I think it's like it's also one of those things where like the only thing you can control is how prepared you are for your opportunity, right? And there's some people that have opportunities every day, like Joe was saying. There's college coaches at every practice at the school that he was at in California. Yeah. And here you might get that once in a blue moon, but you have to be ready for that opportunity, right? Yeah. So like a great example, maybe not in his personal conduct right now, but of that is John Morant, right? He was like not recruited at all. Coach was going out for Murray State, was going out to recruit another kid. He just saw John Morant. He went to go get a bag of chips. Right there, like he couldn't get a bag of chips up in the court that he was at. He had to go downstairs to the lower level. Right, he goes down. He hears somebody like shooting around or whatever in the other court. He peeks in and he sees this kid flying around. He's like, "Wow, man, this kid's pretty good." Yeah, that's how John Morant gets his Division I scholarship, and he turns that into you go to the NCAA tournament and you show out at the NCAA tournament and you start working your way up and taking advantage of these opportunities that. For somebody like him, might not have been an everyday thing, but once the opportunity was there, he was ready, right? Because you can go on all day about saying like, oh, you're from this town in East Bumfuck, New Hampshire, or Massachusetts, or wherever. Like, why are you working like that? You're never going to get the chance, but who knows? Dana White might show up to a local fight or, whoever. A college coach might show up to your high school game because he's in town to visit his cousin. And just decided to drop by, and he sees this kid, destroying it out in East Bumfuck, Maine, and decides to offer him a scholarship, and it goes from there. So, I think a lot of people, like Joe opened up with, with school and stuff like that. A lot of people almost try to talk you out of what you want to do, and they try to talk you into what they think you should do, right? And I think it's always the best way to go about life. And I learned this kind of in the roundabout way, is try to find your passion and then you make that your profession. Yeah. Right? Find your passion and then make it your profession. So, like, if you find something that you're really, really motivated about and you work hard at it and you want to make money off it, and it might not be a lot of money or it might take a long time to make money. Yeah. But if you find a way to do that, that's success. Yeah. Right? Taking some job at a firm where you hate your life and you can't wait to go blow half your paycheck on alcohol and drugs, that's not a successful life. Now, some people might tell you that because you went to school, you got a degree, and you have this job that is pretty stable. But if you hate your life and you hate your job at the end of the day, how successful is that? You know what I mean? So like I don't think people should be telling kids to, oh, you're not going to be this, or it's dumb to do that. Now, if you're 5'2" white kid and you say you want to be an NBA power forward, you might need there's reality checks too, right? But to discourage somebody from working their ass off, I would never do that. No matter what their goal was, if they're working hard, hey, let them work hard. They'll find out on their own that they're gonna fail, but they're gonna learn something from that hard work that's gonna make them successful in something else. Yeah, so
exactly. Especially when you're dealing with young athletes and young kids who, like they have their entire lives ahead of them to make mistakes and learn. Yeah, and through every failure, multiple lessons are learned that can be applied to future success. And to like take that away and say, here, go down this path. It'll be the easiest for you. Like there's really no risk involved with this. You're gonna pay a lot of money and you're gonna get this degree, and then you're gonna. The job placement rate is 99% after graduation. It's guaranteed. You're gonna make this amount of money a year, and there's no risk involved for you. Yeah. Just do what you're told and do the work.
Anytime somebody tells you there's no risk involved for you, there usually is, right? So there's something that you should be paying attention to there.
The risk that you're taking with some of these decisions is the quality of your the rest of your life.
Yeah, that's like, it's the old way of thinking is so like one dimensional. It's like streamlined. So you're gonna do this. You're gonna sit in a classroom for this long, for this many years, and then you're going to go to college, and then you're going to pay off your debt from that college by taking this job, and it just turns into like a never ending like rotating wheel of unhappiness. And like anytime you tell somebody this is what they have to do, like naturally, like most people are gonna be like, wow, man, like I don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like if you're forced to do something, like you're probably not gonna want to do that. So, and that's kind of like the issue I always had in school. Like I was always like pretty smart, but I hated like being told what to do. Yeah. And like people like and it got me into a lot of trouble as a kid. Like I was kicked out of schools, this, that, yada yada yada. Told that if you could get a list of all the teachers that thought that I would be, locked up like at this age, like it would be, through the roof.
Yeah.
Right. And every time I go back now, I go back and I work at an after school program with kids or something like that. And I see a teacher, they're like, wow, like I can't believe. I'm like, guys, like you guys always tried to put me into this box and told me to be like exactly what you guys wanted me to be. And there's different ways that people are going to react to being put into a classroom of 30 people and told to do exactly this or that. And I was never a bad kid. I always just had a problem with people telling me exactly what I had to do.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why I was like, I'm never working a 9 to 5 like in my adult life.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to do it. I'll find a way to do something that I feel good doing. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people try to discourage that.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get great innovators that are going to be working a 9 to 5. You're never going to get somebody who's going to change the world or make a breakthrough working a 9 to 5 at a desk job.
Yeah.
So I think people should really push thinking outside the box a little bit more.
Definitely.
Anybody within reason.
Yeah,
within
exactly,
reason,
exactly. There's limits, but I mean, there really isn't any limits. You just got to be smart.
Yeah, I mean, we do need people to work the 9 to 5 jobs. Yeah. And there are people that are going to want that. There's some people who are risk adverse that want that safety. Mm-hmm. But, to force, not force, but to really tell people that there's only one way to do things, I think that's like a travesty, really.
Yeah, and it goes back to, again, like don't push anything on anybody but their happiness.
Right.
It's like if you've got, I think a classic story about it, right, is our buddy Alex Oriaki, who won the national championship at UConn, right? Ended up getting drafted by the Suns, right? And then spent a little time in the NBA and then a lot of time playing overseas and stuff like that. He told me a story that he was at the Daily, which is a middle school in Lowell, and some teacher asked him what he wanted to do, and he said he wanted to play basketball for a living. She gave him all the stats of why exactly, or he or she, why that wasn't going to happen and why that wasn't realistic. Which is like, why would you do that to a kid, right?
Like a kid, like a kid who hasn't even physically developed yet.
Yeah, so you want that kid to care more about academics and less about athletics. That's not the message that you get across, right? The right message to send to him was, well, look, you could do anything you want, but you know what? In order to get into that great college, a lot of those coaches want to make sure that you have those good grades as well, because then it shows that you work hard. Right. So yeah, you might not ever be using algebra when you're on the basketball court, but the fact that you got an A in algebra class says to that coach that you're willing to do things to make sure that you succeed, right? So that's like the type of messaging that gets lost on a lot of people, where if somebody says, if they're a kid, oh, you're this kid wants to be an astronaut, right? And he doesn't want to work the 9 to 5. Yeah. We'll say, listen, well, it's a little bit more realistic that you're going to be a plumber one day.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, well, why did you just tell that kid that?
Right.
Now, if there's a kid that wants to be a plumber, show that kid how to be the best plumber in the world. Right. Because when he is the best plumber in the world, plumbers make a ton of money.
Yeah.
Right? It's just, don't put like a box over anybody. And also, that again goes back to we're in like a strange time right now, right? Because you still have the people that are alive that went through life in a whole different way than everybody else did now, right? Like,
I'm the first generation to grow up with that phone in my hand. I had one when I was in kindergarten.
Like I grew up. I remember I didn't know what the internet was. And when my dad's friend came to our house and like set up a computer for the first time, I was like, well, like, he's like, well, you're online now. I'm like, well, what does that mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I had no idea. Like, I couldn't even fathom it.
Yeah. So you've got people teaching kids nowadays what to do or what's the best route to take that have no kind of thought. They don't really understand how these kids are growing up.
Yeah.
Right. So we're in the middle of a very strange time. We're in like a limbo time where
The baton is being passed.
It's a it's a
we're
renaissance.
We're holding on to the old guard of like you were saying earlier, right? Like you have to go to college, right? And as soon as you get out of college, you better go get a job. You better be ready to know what you want to do at 18 years old. Choose your major, go to college, get a job in that major, start paying off that debt. 2.5 kids with a white picket fence and a red door by 28 years old.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like that is so different. Like even human consciousness is completely different than it was 100 years ago. Right?
Yeah.
Like you know what people don't really realize is we talk about the morphing with technology, right? Like how is technology going to go? How is this artificial intelligence going to go? Right? Like is Terminator going to happen one day, right? Like, are these machines going to turn against us? No.
That's why you need to get ready to fight.
Yeah,
exactly.
Go down to Evolution. Get your hands right.
What's really going to happen...
Would you mind just pushing that in real quick? Like that? No. The fucking thing came off.
Yeah. But what will really happen is we're going to merge with technology. And it already happened. Think about it. It doesn't need to be physically attached to you.
The phone.
This is always in an arm's length.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, you can grab your phone and look up something like, all right, what's, you know, any question in the world, grab your phone and Google it.
Yeah.
You know, and that changes everything. It changes everything. And think about it like this, too. And this is another thing that the kids nowadays have figured out, but adults haven't. We have the access to unlimited outreach, organic outreach, whenever we want, right? Before, if you wanted to reach 1 million people, you had to buy a TV slot, a commercial slot,
Newspaper.
right? And that cost a lot of money. And obviously the people that could afford that are only part of one class, right? Now, you post the right trending song to your stupid fucking TikTok dance, you're going to reach 1 million people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you want to promote
Like he's
a business,
very it's not even that difficult.
Look
to
at
do.
half of the music out there right now.
Yeah.
All it has to do it just has to be catchy. It has to catch your attention for 10 seconds.
go viral.
That's it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's no like you don't have to be super like creative, this incredible songwriter or producer or anything like that. You just have to catch people's attention for 10 seconds now.
Yeah.
That's all it takes.
You know? That's it.
Yeah. So I think that like the message, right, is that pretty much if you like what's the Diesel University message? Before I say what I'm going to say, what do you think the main Diesel University message is?
Let's flip the script and put you on the hot spot now. Let's ask you the questions.
Take steps every day. Okay, so I want people to understand the control that they have over their situation. Whether you're an athlete, whether you're, it's very heavily marketed towards kids who are my age. Like my target audience is me, because I've gained a lot of knowledge in the past year and a half or so that I think has been very valuable to my life and has changed my life in a lot of ways. So I'm pushing this message out to other people that you have control over your circumstances. If you want something, you can go out and get it. Like you can flip a switch in your head that you didn't even know you had.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Big time.
like your body is hardwired to survive. And if you can convince yourself and if you can create this image in your head that this is the only path that you have or you'll die. Like that was my mentality for football. Like this is my last chance.
Yep.
Like last chance or I die. That was, maybe that's a bit extreme, but like you have full control over your circumstances. Whatever you want to do in life, it's completely up to you. And we also push a positive relationship between the mind and body, because in order to get to a level of performance or a level of achievement or accomplishment that you desire to get to, you have to have a nice blended and positive relationship between the two things that are able to get you to wherever you want to go.
Yep.
And that's our message, especially for young athletes, because I didn't have the information that I have now. And now that I have it, and I'm learning more every day, just being an intern at NESP, I'm learning every single day on how to make young athletes better. And it's like something I'm very passionate about.
And young people overall.
Exactly.
You know, not just athletes, but young people through athletics.
Exactly.
Right?
The lessons that athletics have taught me in my life have been so beneficial to me. Like the day of my grandfather's funeral, when he passed away, who I was very close with, he had a key role in my athletic journey because he played football at a high level back in like the 60s, and we had a very good relationship. And the day of his funeral, I was at my football practice. I came to football halfway through with the suit, with my not my suit, but like I didn't have a shirt, so I put my football pads over my dress shirt.
Nice.
Like, and then and then my other grandfather passed away during COVID, and that same morning I was at my football practice because there's nowhere else I'd rather be. And I knew that there were certain things that I had to do, and the external circumstances, no matter how challenging they were for me and how emotionally distressing they were, there were things that had to get done, and there were people who were relying on me to be places, and that taught me a lesson. So yeah, I think just overall control of your circumstances and having an understanding of education to make the most educated decisions towards your future.
Yeah, it's a good message, man.
Yep. That is a good message. And that, again, like that's like the overall message I think that we're both talking about.
Right.
Is that like we live in a time where if you want to do it, you can do it, right? And you don't listen to the messaging out there, because a lot of the messaging has come from, we live in a comfortable time, and like the famous saying goes, comfortable times breed weak men, right? And weak men breed it's what is it? Good times breed weak men
breed hard
times.
Hard times make hard men.
Yeah, and hard men make good times. So and that's not word for word.
Yeah.
But either way, right? It's like a lot of the messaging out there is like human beings have to find a problem to solve.
Yeah.
And when there's not a lot of problems to solve, we're gonna make them up.
Yeah.
Right? But
internally,
yeah,
like we're gonna start picking each other apart, like what's happening now.
Yeah.
You know, there's never been a time where we've had more as a human race, but we're arguing more with each other over the dumbest things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
because there's no real existential, like massive issues that we're facing, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, everybody's circumstance is different, right? There are some people that are, but just as a whole for humanity, right? Like, I mean, we've had it better than
aliens came down right now and declared war on the human race, you would see everybody from every nation start banding together like that. Yeah. You know, and using all the technology that we have and sharing this and that. It's just when there's not a common enemy, you start looking for enemies.
Exactly.
You know,
enemies in each other.
It's the thought of human beings existing in, you know, peace, like total peace in a utopia. It's a pipe dream.
Yeah.
You know, if you believe in, you know, creation and the Bible, you know, there's 4 people on Earth, 2 of them killed each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, what makes you think with 7 billion people that we're all going to get along in kumbaya together?
Yeah.
You know?
It's a primal thing.
It really is.
We seek conflict, and there's constantly a conflict to find. It's just the people that the people that think about it like this, right? This, like, you go and you eat a plate of eggs, right? And then you go and you put that plate in the sink. And it's like, you think to yourself, well, I should probably put that in the dishwasher, right? But you don't, right? Like, you just lost the battle right there.
Yeah.
Right? And you always know, right? It happens probably hundreds times a day or thousands of times a day. Throughout the day. There's always something that you should do, and there's a route that you shouldn't do it, right? And there's tiny little battles, and then there's the bigger ones. But every single time you make that conscious decision to not do that right thing, right? And it can be so small, and it's like saying the right thing might give the wrong idea, but again, it's something as small as putting your dish in the dishwasher. It's something as small as
the cart at Walmart.
Yeah, or if
that's
you
like
take
the number one thing for me. It's
that's
that shows me that you're a weak person.
Yeah.
If you're right there and you don't put the cart away,
Yeah.
you almost like consciously made a decision to be weak right
and
there.
that person will lose every other battle, right? Like it's then you got the people that do the hard things, right? Like going to work out on a day that you don't want to work out. Working out, period, right? Like when you're working out and you're doing a set that is, okay, do as many reps as you possibly can, and you get to 18 and you knew you can do 20, but fuck, I'm going to stop at 18, right? Like you lost the battle right there. You lost the battle by not putting your dish in the dishwasher. You lost the battle by not taking that cold shower in the morning, right? Like racking your weights. But if you consciously win more battles than you lose every single day, then you're like you're setting up the path to making that a habit in every single thing you do, not tapping from Chris Driscoll, putting you in the most uncomfortable position you've ever been in, but you can survive. The second you don't tap from that, later on at night, you go home, you're going to put that plate in the dishwasher, right? And then the next day, you're going to start a podcast that you've always wanted to start instead of not starting it, not doing it. It's a win that battle, win the small battles, because they accumulate and they set a tone for you winning the bigger battles in life, you know? And again, like we're at a time right now where you can look at it like as an analogy, you've got so many different weapons to choose from. You've got the weapon of knowledge. You want to learn a different language, download Duolingo on your phone. What the fuck? How could you have done that
Portuguese
before?
Pretty much.
Right? Yeah, I remember talking to you about that a long time ago. And then I wanted to learn Portuguese because there was a kid from. There was a kid in our kids' jiu-jitsu class.
There was a Brazilian girl.
I remember there was a kid in our kids' jiu-jitsu class.
Let me save you a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Don't learn Portuguese.
Yeah, but like you have so much access to like whatever you want. I mean, money has not become this much of an issue. It's just like your living circumstances is like heavily dependent upon money. I mean, who am I to talk about money? Because I'm an 18-year-old kid. I don't necessarily have a full understanding of money, but like, I think knowledge has more power than money because knowledge can create money, and you have unlimited access to knowledge. And especially being as young as I am right now, I understand this. Like, I've come to understand this on a pretty deep level that knowledge is like my path to success.
And I think knowledge, it doesn't necessarily mean academic knowledge either. Like real world experience, kind of like Joe said with
this is getting out of control. We need to fix this. I think it's messed up too.
This place is falling apart. Podcast is gonna fall apart.
I know.
I think knowledge can be split into two. Real world application and academic application, and I think the best decision I ever made in my life was to my senior year of college. We moved to Brazil, and I gained so much life experience in that couple years that I lived down there that I would never get in a classroom. And I think they both have their place, but being able to get out there and understand how the real world works and be on your own and have to learn another language, like those are skills that like we learned at a young age that have carried us through till now. If you told me, again, you're going to learn Portuguese in 3 months, like I think you're crazy. I took 4 years of Spanish and I can barely say hola, It's like, I know how to raise my hand and ask to go to the bathroom so I can skip class and go to Green Bamboo, but that's about it, you know? Shout out to Green Bamboo, by the way.
I don't know who it is.
Still going?
They probably shouldn't.
Is it a one?
Too
is
many
it like
fights in the back parking lot?
I don't know what it is.
It's a Chinese restaurant downtown that everybody used to leave Lowell High for.
Yeah.
But like seeing, like you said, like I didn't understand at 22 years old that I could do that. Like, wow, I can learn another language in 3 months if I want to. If
you immerse yourself in it.
If there's enough necessity for it, and I needed to, because if I wanted to eat, I needed to be able to speak Portuguese. If I wanted directions to get to where I needed to get to, I needed to learn how to speak Portuguese. So it showed me and my brother and others that it was like, if you really want to do something, there's very little that can actually stop you if you're trying to find a way to do it.
Yeah.
You know, if you want it bad enough. You know,
Yeah.
there's ton that can deflect you from it. Like, and in your mind, you might tell yourself you can't do it because of this or because of that, or you know, I got a flat tire, I can't do it today. Well, you know, there's Uber now. Like, you know, there's always a way to get things done. And again, like Joe said, athletics, but more so combat sports. They teach you that you have to push through and find a way out, or else you're gonna go home feeling like shit.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's been plenty of times like I've got the shit kicked out of me in practice, but I felt great because I knew like I got out of this one position, or I didn't quit in this spot where I, like, maybe 2 months ago I would have. You know, and there's times where, you know, maybe you beat somebody, but you know it's because they were a lot smaller than you or something like that, or you would have quit if you were in that position where they were, and you feel like shit, you know. So like you guys both said, there's not really a lot stopping you from getting what you want done. The biggest thing is yourself.
Yeah.
And
You learn that in combat sports, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I have minimal experience with wrestling, but it's like it's you versus you.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
it really is.
It's like it's not even like, okay, so it's you versus you all the time, and then when you get to like the moment where you're fighting or
There's a
like
couple
wrestling,
minutes
or
where you're facing
you versus
else,
somebody else,
But
but it's
there's
always you
months
versus you.
where you're facing yourself. You
And
know?
even in those moments that you're facing somebody else, it's still a lot of you versus you.
Yeah,
Definitely,
Yep.
there are limits that you know you can push past that sometimes you just don't.
yeah, and that's I think, I think it goes hand in hand with like weak people being like easily controlled. I think there's a reason why the narrative is to not be mentally and physically strong. It's because those people are way easier. They need help.
Yeah,
The fat weak kid needs help to finish the job. They need help doing this. They need help doing that.
And what does help cost?
Exactly.
Money.
And we can give it to you for a price.
Yeah.
yeah,
You know? So
Like, yeah.
that's, you know, whole nations are built upon that. You know, if you keep the people wanting or needing something, well, now you have the best business model ever. I have it and you need it. You know, and there's no competition.
yeah,
You know, only take this vaccine. Only prevent COVID this way. You know,
Yep.
don't go out on the beach for free and get vitamin D. Come get this vaccine. This is the only way you can do it. You know, how much money is made off of that versus, you know, you can run and do push-ups and swim on the beach for free.
yeah.
You know, so
But it's just a matter
that's
of
my 2 cents.
pushing yourself. Yeah. No, definitely a lot of money was made from that. You go to Fenway Park and you see a giant Moderna sign on there.
Sponsored
Green
by
Monster.
Pfizer.
And now they're gonna make all the money on the shots that help you with your blood clots,
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
myocarditis.
Yep.
Yep. But it's a topic for another day.
Get that
It's-
tinfoil hat off, Joe. It's not the
seems
time.
like there's a lot of band-aids that are just slapped on things.
Yeah, but I mean
Lot of-
that's
that's
how it
the
is
gut
with
reaction.
everything. I mean, like throughout human history, it's like that. You know, the top of the top is gonna want to stay there, and they're gonna find a way to keep somebody below them.
Yeah.
If everybody was, you know, in the top, you know, class, nobody would be able to be controlled, and nobody, you can't make money off of those people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you see them right now like holding on to that power as much as they can, because when you start to the best way to to hold on to power is to really control all the information that's like disseminated to all the masses. They can't do that anymore.
Right.
They can't do it anymore. So when they can't do it anymore, what does a power structure do when they're losing power? They do drastic things, right? And they put out drastic messages in order for them to keep power, and they want to make you weak. And that's what, all of this whole different, one example again, like he said earlier, is this whole body positivity thing. They know that that if you're out of shape and you're fat and all these different things,
They're gonna die early.
You're gonna die earlier. Not only are you gonna die earlier, but there's a direct correlation between obesity and mental health issues, because there are. They call your gut your second brain. When you're feeding your gut horrible things, the processes in your brain aren't working as well, and you're not mentally as healthy. Exercise is one of the best things you can do for your mental health. But when you're doing all of these things, you're self-reliant, right? And you're not reliant on the pharmaceuticals, the fat-burning drugs, the having to go to get your diabetes medication once a week, all these different things that just keep you reliant on them. So the message that they push out there right now is one of, you need us, because they know right now, and it's not, and it's really like a subtle message of, you need us. It's a message of, it's okay to be fat. Lizzo is going to tell you,
It's pissed me off.
Lizzo is going to tell you that, she loves her body. She weighs, like my man Jordan Peterson said, when they put that fat lady on the cover of Sports
he was like, not
Illustrated,
beautiful.
She's not beautiful.
not
Like,
beautiful.
why are you showing people that she's not beautiful? And yeah, some people like thick women. All right, but the point is
that the majority?
Why'd you look at me?
Yeah.
Why'd you look directly at me?
but the point is that, like, that isn't healthy, and it makes you reliant on a system. It keeps you weak. The weaker you are, the less self-reliant you are. And the message that they try to push across, whether it's deliberate, I mean, it is deliberate, whether it's obvious or not, they use different subtle ways, is keep them unhealthy, keep them weak. The way that you stay reliant on them is if you're healthy and weak. And if you're strong, then no. And they keep that message out there by telling people you've got it hard, right? This new fucking word, the use of this word trauma all the time, that you hear all these Gen Zers saying. Are you Gen Z? Gen Z.
What is your trauma?
Yeah, what is your trauma?
Yeah, exactly. You want to talk about trauma? Ask a World War II veteran about
Exactly.
trauma.
And they would never tell you about it.
Yeah.
Shut the, like, and this whole thing of like, oh, men's mental health, like, get out there and stop saying man up and shit like that. Like, no, because the men that took that took that seriously, man up, right? Like, work through your fucking problems in your head. Like, close your eyes every day for 10 minutes. Don't be distracted by your phone. Don't be distracted by your laptop. Forget about those different kind of getaways, because that's what they are. They're a getaway from you manning up and closing your eyes and being in silence and working through the thoughts that are in your head. The message should be, man the fuck up, right? Like, that's the message for men.
Yeah.
It should be, because the world needs strong men. Toxic masculinity is beating women, is doing stupid shit like that, is shooting at people because you don't know how to fight. That's toxic masculinity, but the world needs true masculinity.
Right.
Because weak men, again, create hard times. Weak men are the school shooters. Weak men are the mass shooters. Those are the people with ego issues. Strong men don't do that shit. Strong men stop those people. Right? Strong men make the world better. But again, strong men don't rely on the structures that have, that are corrupted.
Or you could take this pill from Pfizer to make all your problems go away.
Exactly. Yeah.
That sounds like a lot of work, Joe. I don't think I want to do all that.
Yeah,
I think
give
I'd
me
rather
that
take
Xanax.
this pill.
Yeah.
And that's what they do. They
Put me in the
push that,
metaverse.
instead of fighting your inner bitch and fighting through those demons that we all have. Like, it's a struggle for a lot of people. Everybody has a struggle, but instead of going for a run or taking that ice bath or whatever, here's a Xanax. Right?
Yeah.
And
Well,
guess what we can do when you're on Xanax? We can push you to do other things when you're zombied out. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's really hard to watch all this stuff being pushed. And like, I see things every day now. They have these pills that they're going to give to kids as young as 8 years old for obesity, or these surgeries that you can have and this and that. And it's like, you're just putting it into not the kids necessarily heads, but the parents heads. It's okay. Like, we could fix it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's fine. Like, let him eat the Oreos, whatever. If he gets a little fat, we'll give him the pill. And then,
They had a doctor. We talked about it the other day on 60 Minutes the other day, that claimed that obesity is genetic.
Yeah.
Obesity is genetic because if a parent eats like shit, then
Kids are gonna eat
obviously
like
they're
shit.
going to put shit in the cabinets.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not because you're born with some fat gene. That's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard. If a parent exercises, I saw a stat on it the other day. If a parent exercises and
How
eats
come
healthy,
nobody in Ethiopia has that fat gene?
I know.
Yeah. exactly.
You know,
Yeah, if
it's
you
just
go-
it's just not.
you
It
go
just
to-
doesn't
you-
exist there.
yeah.
That gene doesn't
You go to
exist.
Europe, you go to Switzerland, nobody's fat.
Yeah.
But they don't have their version of 60 Minutes, some doctor going on there telling you that, if you're fat, it's not your fault.
Yeah.
You know, you're born fat, and here's a pill.
No, I think there are people that are a little more predisposed, like,
Yeah.
better metabolisms or whatever. But you're telling me if you eat steak and rice and broccoli every single day that you're gonna be obese?
No.
You're crazy.
It's
And you exercise and like this, you're crazy.
Yeah.
Like if you get to a point where you are insanely obese, it's gonna be really hard to get back to that baseline.
But it's not impossible, and it's not.
No, it's. I mean, there's a kid in our gym. We were just talking about it right before we started the podcast. Angel, he lost 60 pounds in a month. 60 pounds in a month.
It's ridiculous.
It's crazy, but people would tell him, "Hey, it's fine. Like you're beautiful the way you are."
Yeah.
It's
or like don't take it a pound at like it's really hard to do this. What I always say
Yeah.
is it's not hard. It's hard, but it isn't hard. There's no secret behind it. You know what to do.
It's easy.
Do it. Right?
Eat clean food.
Make it easier, right? There's no secret, right? Like the secret is there's no secret.
And the thing is, again, where athletics came into play, it's like, look, if you want to believe that, being 5'5" and 250 pounds is okay, well, now in the athletic realm, he has to go up against me.
Yeah.
I'm 6'4", 240 pounds. We're in the same division now.
Yeah.
So competitively, you're at a huge disadvantage. And that's what he saw. He's like, holy shit, if I'm going to be training and I'm going to be I want to compete, I have to get down to the proper weight, right? Or else I'm going to get steamrolled by these guys. And that's, again, where athletics are going to be a reflection of real life. Like, it's going to wake you up to the fact that you're not supposed to be 250 pounds at 5'5".
Yeah.
Like, it's again, athletics is a micro dose of reality.
Definitely.
And it's always going to tell you, like, where you stand and what you need to improve.
Yeah.
And I think that's, again, you can tie things in like that all day.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, we already talked about how specific that is to combat sports, but for like football, there's only 11 players in the field at a time. For basketball, there's only 5 players on the field at a time, or on the court at a time, and there's only how many players on a basketball roster? 15.
Yeah.
12, right?
12.
Yeah.
In the NBA, you get 15.
To have the opportunity to be one of those 12 guys, you have to bear a great degree of personal responsibility for your performance and how you take care of your body and how you carry yourself on and off the court. Just like, I guess I most recently started to understand the responsibility that I bared, because I never started in football until my senior year. So like junior year, I rode the bench the whole time, and then when I became a senior, I had such a great appreciation for the opportunity that I had, because I understood that it was the work that I put in that got me to that level, and that if I just listened to what other people said and like, oh yeah, just work out with the team, you'll develop, in like this program is structured, it's tailored to what you need to do, I would have never put myself in that position to have the opportunity to like do what I had always wanted to do. So I think it's very important to bear a sense of personal responsibility.
Yeah.
100%.
Just in general. In life, like, again, sports is just a microcosm of life.
Yeah.
Well, and, a good friend of mine, Greg Donahue, he played, great baseball player, right? Great athlete. And he went to St. John's Prep, and he was on the baseball team with this kid, Yastrzemski, Carl Yastrzemski's grandson, who now plays for the Giants. And he, is a successful baseball player. He's making a ton of money. I think he starts for the Giants. And Greg and I one night were talking about the difference between a guy like Yastrzemski and a guy like everybody else. And of course there are different outliers who are just like LeBron James, who was born to be in the NBA, but most people that make it aren't. And then there are people that are born like that who don't make it. And the difference is between the people that do make it and don't. And like Greg said that night to me, right? When he went to college and he was playing Division I baseball, he was like, on the weekends, I don't drink 15 beers, right, on a Friday night, and I'm worried about girls, and I'm worried about having fun, and I'm worried about, not worried about, but I'm drinking, and Yastrzemski was baseball, right? That was it. I'm not drinking a beer tonight because tomorrow I'm not going to be able to work out as effectively to get better at baseball, right? And he eats, sleep, drink, baseball, right? And a lot of the times that's what takes these athletes to the next level. And it's the same thing in high school sports, right? Like the kids that don't go to, I don't know if you Gen Zers even have kegs anymore, if you just live in the metaverse, but like the kids that don't go to the kegs on Friday after the football game because on Saturday they want to have a clear head for their film session. Like that kid is going to go and make it. And at a certain point, it's like Tom Brady, right? Like Brady is the perfect example. Brady, Jamarcus Russell. Jamarcus Russell could throw a football 70 yards from his knees, right? But I guarantee you, when football practice was over, he was not going back to watch film, right? Whereas Brady knew to a point, I don't have that talent. I have to do this. Every single decision that guy makes, down to the ice cream that he eats, avocado ice cream instead of Ben & Jerry's because he doesn't want to be inflamed and he wants to avoid injury. Every single decision he made was to be successful at his sport, right? And that's what separates the people that make it to that top level. Like Tim Grover says, relentless, right? Like Kobe, who's being in the gym at 4 a.m. LeBron's not that guy.
Right.
LeBron was born with it. He's not that guy.
And there's a sliding scale to it too, right?
Yeah.
And being honest with yourself and understanding where you are in that scale. If you are LeBron James, you can get away with drinking tequila or, having some ice cream or whatever. But if you're the, 11th guy on the roster, you better be doing everything you can to make it climb up that ladder.
Yeah.
And that's what a guy like Brady or, Kobe or Michael Jordan, those guys have talent, and Jordan and Kobe more so than Brady. They have the talent, but they also have the work ethic of the last guy on the roster. And that's what makes greatness.
Yeah.
And Brady, you can make an argument that he's probably the hardest working athlete ever because he wasn't as naturally talented as those guys, and he's as successful or arguably more successful than all of them. So there's something to be taken away from with that.
Yeah, definitely. It's a quote that I have always liked is the wolf at the top of the hill is never as hungry as the wolf climbing the hill. And it's just about staying hungry and not getting a sense of not being comfortable with comfort.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And not having general satisfaction from or with your circumstances.
And that's why competition is so important, because you want to be knocked on your ass and you want to see that there's somebody better than you, because that's what keeps you moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
That's why these, Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan, you made it to the NBA, man. You won a championship. You were, scoring title, MVP.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this guy scored 30 on me last time I played him.
Yeah.
I need to do everything I can to not. Then again, those are the guys that are going to be successful with whatever they do.
Yeah. You just got to always find a way to have a chip on your shoulder.
Yeah.
Because for a little while, I felt like after football season ended and my goal of playing college football kind of fizzled a little bit, I always felt like what else?
Yeah.
What more is there for me to prove? Or what else?
Life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everybody feels that, by the way.
Yeah. I'm gonna be honest. I've never heard that sound in my house before, and I'm just very happy that it's happening during.
Maybe he's making avocado ice cream.
Yeah, he probably might be. He might have heard us, but yeah.
Yeah. No, but that's a good point, right? Like, what is this is over. So what's the next thing to go for? It's just life every single day, right? Like win the day, right? Like a kid that he might hear this if he listens all the way to this point in the podcast, but one day. One of my old roommates, right? He got very close to the NFL, right? He played in the CFL. His kid's a fucking stud athlete. He's a stud in everything he does, right? And one day he's sleeping till 9, and the day before he went to a paintball thing with a bunch of Navy SEALs, right? And he's laying in his bed at 9 o'clock, and I said to him, "How the fuck can you be in bed at 9 o'clock the day after being around a bunch of Navy SEALs?" "Well, I got nothing to get fired up about." I said, "How about just today?
Yeah.
Get fired up about today." You know what I mean? Like you want to go to bed every single day, like fired up for the next day. That if you're living for the weekend, right? Like if you're like Wednesday, oh fuck, I can't wait for the weekend. right? Like maybe high school, that's okay, right? But when you get to our age, if that's what you need to reevaluate,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
if you get fired up only for your time off from your job to go drink 25 Bud Lights down at the Sports Zone in Tewksbury, then you're not getting fired up for life. You're getting fired up to numb yourself from the rest of what you do every single day.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that also, again, comes from life experience, because I'll never forget getting knocked out of the state tournament our senior year in high school, and just like bawling my eyes out on the bus, because I was like, it's over. Like life is over.
Yeah.
And like my dad's like laughing at me. He's like, he sees me on the bus and he's like, dude, you're going to college in a few months. It's going to be way better than high school.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, like college, this is like my whole life was built around winning a state championship. And, this was it. Like, I'm never going to be around like these guys again. These are kids that I grew up with and yada, yada, yada. And I'm never going to see them like as much as I do now. And then you get to college and you're like, oh, this is way better.
Yeah.
And then you get out of college and you're like, oh, now I'm in the real world and I have some money and I can go wherever I want.
And this
like,
is even better.
And this is even better. And
Yeah.
so it's normal to feel that way. Like when you lose that short-term goal and, maybe you fall short of it, it's normal to have that feeling of like, well, what now? Or like, what? There's nothing to live for. It's, same thing with a girlfriend. Like, like I'm never going to love again. And then you go to Brazil and you love everybody.
Yeah.
Exactly. But that's how life works, and as you get older, you start to see that, and it's like, okay, well, that didn't work, but what's the next goal?
And what can you make, like, what can you find to do to conquer next?
Yeah.
Which
Which is what we're doing now.
Yeah.
We're, we have our respective businesses, and we're successful to an extent in our individual businesses. But since the day I came back from Brazil, I was at the West End with him working out, and I was like, look, we need to have a gym together eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, things have happened where it hasn't been able to happen up until this point, but we're now looking to build that one-stop shop for everybody where, we have the whole mixed martial arts scene with the strength programming.
Yeah.
And we want to put all that together. So now it's like, oh, man, you guys have successful businesses. Well, what's next? Well, let's make it even better.
Yeah.
And then when whatever we end up doing in the future with each other, we're going to always be like, well, how can we make it better than this?
Yeah.
How can we be the premier place for professional athletes of all kinds to be down here? I want Tom Brady knocking on my door, begging me for a membership to come to our gym. That's the next goal. Like, so there's always something you can work towards.
Definitely.
And, you definitely want to, celebrate the small victories too, but not for too long.
Yeah.
Right? Like you set goals, you accomplish them, you celebrate that, and then you move on to the next one, because there's always something you could be doing better.
Yeah.
And shameless plug before we end here, that we are going to have this facility.
Oh yeah.
And it's going to be like a super facility, and the whole, I think, kind of goal of it, the mission of it, is really a overarching thing. Like, what did we just talk about? Everything in this podcast, and provide that for people.
Yeah.
Provide the place where they can work past something that's difficult and realize that you can get past that. It's not just a place for if you want to be, the next John Jones or the next Tom Brady. It's the spot for your local music teacher to go down to and realize that he can fight, right? And to gain confidence. And the local guys that, are struggling with a sense of purpose, the local guys and girls that, are struggling with maybe some type of mental health or anything, right? Lack of confidence, stuff like that you can come in here. You can jump in an ice bath for 5 minutes and realize after 30 seconds of that ice bath, yeah, this sucks, but I can get through it, right?
Yeah.
Like doing a set of as many as possible and realizing that you're not done at 18, even though the next 2 reps are going to suck and you can get through it, right? Like getting choked out by Jeremy, Chris, and Derek Driscoll, but they don't have your carotid artery, and you can fight through it, and you can not tap from pressure when there's 10 seconds left on the clock, and you can get through that, right? Like that's what we want to provide. There isn't one in this area. We want to be that place, and it's coming.
It's coming. And
I believe it.
And that's the thing. 90% of the people that are in our mixed martial arts gym are the 9-to-5ers that are there just trying to feel like a sense of purpose, or to fight through that tough training session. And those are the guys that honestly are the best to work with. Those are the guys that give me the most satisfaction. Yeah, I love working with our fighters, and I love getting guys ready to compete at high levels. But the guy that comes in and says, man, I had my kid all day, and then I worked 9 to 5, this, that, and I just carved out a little bit of time to come here, and I feel great. That is like the most satisfying thing for me, because it's like, it's a tough environment to walk into. You see a bunch of guys beating each other's ass and, working real hard, and they're all in shape, and you get some pudgy accountant that comes in and he's like, hey, you know what? I want to push myself, and I want to be, throw me in there with those guys. Yeah. That takes a lot of fucking balls, man. And that's really what, our new facility is going to offer. Whatever your fitness goals are, whatever you're striving for, we want to be the place that the mother, the grandmother, the father, the kids, they can all get something in one place. And like you said, there's nothing really around here that offers that, and we're going to be offering it pretty soon, so stay tuned.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good place to end right there.
Yeah. Thanks for having us on, Max.
Much else has to be said.
Decimus Meridius.
I'm very, very proud of you, man. I've seen you grow up over the past, probably like 7 years or something like that, and it's you surprised me a lot with how much you've grown, man.
I appreciate that.
You're a good example of seizing, right, like opportunity, but realizing that you can only seize that opportunity if you fucking do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Again,
keep it going, man.
I'll never forget that Instagram message.
Yeah.
And now you're doing it with a podcast.
I'll never forget him flopping around on my mats like a fish out of water.
Yeah.
Thanks again for having us, man.
Yeah, no, definitely.